Warfare is the latest film from writer and director Alex Garland, and it's based off a true story of a group of Navy SEALs on a routine observation mission during the Battle of Ramadi in November of 2006. But one thing that separates this war movie from other war movies is that Alex Garland had co-writer and co-director Ray Mendoza working with him on this movie, and Ray Mendoza was actually one of the Navy SEALs who was present during this particular mission. In fact, this whole story of this movie is based off of not only Ray Mendoza's testimony, but also the testimony of the other Navy SEALs that were present for this operation. And I know what you're thinking. This can come across as being a little bit gimmicky because it's essentially just a fancy way of saying this movie's based off of a true story. And we see that time and time again when it comes to Hollywood movies, even those that are based off a true story basically just means that there's vague similarities between the movie and a real event, or maybe the movies that are based off a true story that are considered pretty authentic interviewed some of the people who are present, or maybe even had one of them on set as a consultant, but still Hollywood has to do their thing and exaggerate the drama between characters, or maybe add action scenes to it, or exaggerate the existing action scenes that actually occurred. But I never got the impression that they did that when it came to this movie, because I'm just so used to the typical Hollywood formula. As I was watching this movie, I was thinking there's certain moments where you would feel like there would be an action scene or some type of action beat that never actually came, because despite what the trailer might suggest for this movie, it's not just constant fighting. There's those brief moments of action that just kind of like causes everything to kick up into overdrive, but those are few and far between. And in between them, there's just the downtime, and it's just the anticipation of something worse even happening. But then when those moments do arrive, they're again just kind of quick, fleeting, matter-of-factly, just like the real violence in Iraq, where there's not a buildup. There's not anything to indicate that something's going to happen. Something bad just happens. It's over with. And then people are just left dealing with the fallout of all that. And that's something I really appreciate about this movie, because at no point is there anything in here that makes me think, okay, did that really happen, or did Hollywood just make it up? I'm not saying this is a one-for-one retelling of what actually happened, because it is based off of the memories of people from nearly 20 years ago. But still, there was nothing that I thought was so outlandish in this movie, or no character did anything that was too extraordinary. Everything that happened in this movie seemed pretty grounded and realistic. And even if there was some stuff that was changed for the sake of this movie, I couldn't tell you what it was. Something else that I think lends credibility to this movie are the actors themselves, because everyone did a phenomenal job, from the way they moved to the military jargon that they spoke throughout the movie that might be a little bit inaccessible to some people, but I think it felt a lot more authentic. But more impressively, though, is just the way people behaved when things started getting really bad for them, because everyone behaved in a very human manner. Because even though they're Navy SEALs and people might have an impression of what a Navy SEAL would be like in a situation like this, when push comes to shove, they're still just people. So when things really kick off and their buddies are getting wounded, some of them are going to kind of wilt away. Other people are going to rise above all of it. Some people are going to take a moment to compose themselves before they get back in the fight. But every one of them is scared, because that's really what's going on here. It's a fight for survival. And no matter what, they're afraid to be in this situation, and they just want to get out of there, because that's the whole point of this movie, is trying to get out of there. And something else that you see in this movie that you don't normally see to this extent in other movies is the way people scream whenever they get wounded, because in other movies, it might just be a momentary thing and then it's done with it. But in this movie, it just drags on and on and on. And some people might get tired of that, but it definitely feels a lot more real, because in a real life situation, if someone gets blown up and is all mangled, they're not just going to scream for 30 seconds and that's it. They're going to keep screaming over and over again until they finally get out of that situation. And that's something I appreciated about this movie. They didn't try to shy away from the gory details. Another thing I really liked about this movie is that it's not like this is a particularly important mission or something egregious went wrong and that's why they found themselves in this situation. It's really just a regular day in the life for these SEALs. They go out on a routine mission and things go bad. It's not like anyone could have prevented it. It just happens this way, and they have to find some way of dealing with it. And that's really what a lot of people have to work with when it comes to deploying in these type of environments, is that it could just be any other day, whether you're on a convoy going somewhere and your vehicle just happens to hit an explosive, or you're just in your observation post watching a market and then someone tosses a grenade in the window and then you have to deal with a bunch of people shooting at your building and trying to find a way to get out of there. It's very realistic, very raw, and that's something I like about it because it's not like it's trying to embellish the story and say like, oh, we're after some important figure or someone really dropped the ball and did something wrong and that's why they're in this situation. There was no way you could prevent it. Only thing you can do is just how you're going to respond to the situation that you have handed to you. And I think they did a really good job at this, showing now, even though it's a difficult situation, they still find a way of overcoming all the odds and get out of there alive, or at least some of them do. This might seem a little bit minor, but I still want to point out that I really enjoyed the sound design of this movie because it really does immerse you in the situation. First of all, there's no music played throughout the movie, only just the very opening and the end credits. But throughout the whole movie, the bullet sounds that they had, whether there's the thumping sound of the saw as they're firing at full auto indoors, or whether they're firing outdoors, the bullet cracks and ricochet sounds, I think they did a phenomenal job on this movie. And if it gets nominated or even wins the Oscar for Best Sound and Sound Editing, I really wouldn't be surprised. One of my all-time favorite war movies is Black Hawk Down, and in many ways, there's a lot of similarities between this movie and that movie. Both movies feature specialized units that are cut off in a hostile city, fighting to stay alive while they're waiting for extraction, except in Black Hawk Down, where it's a group of Rangers and Delta operators. In this one, it's a small group of SEALs working out of a house, and that's pretty much it. Yeah, there's a little bit of fighting out in the streets, but for the most part, all the action stays isolated to this house. And that's basically it throughout the movie. It might sound boring, but it definitely cranks up the intensity with all the anticipation, just waiting for stuff to happen throughout the movie. Sometimes it does, other times it doesn't. And when you think they're about ready to make it out, something bad even happens. But when it's all said and done, there's really no heroic victory or no good job or anything like that. It's just another day in the life of the SEALs. And their only victory is that they get to live to fight another day. Overall, they did a really good job on this movie, and I don't personally have many complaints about it. When they made it, they set out to try to make a realistic war movie, and I think to that end, they knocked it out of the park. This is probably the most realistic, or at least one of the most realistic war movies I've personally ever seen. And if there are situations in this movie that may have been exaggerated, I couldn't tell you which ones they were, because even though I obviously didn't have the same experience as these guys did, I could imagine a situation like this happening when I was deployed to Iraq a couple of years after the events of this movie. So that's why I would say that this movie is a 9 out of 10. I highly recommend it for anyone who actually likes a lot of war movies, particularly Black Hawk Down. Watch that movie and then watch this movie and just kind of see how there is a lot of similarities between the two of them. Or at least, like I said, I thought there was a lot of similarities between the two of them. But let me know what you think about this movie in the comment section below. Have you seen Warfare and what did you think about it? And also, if you haven't already, make sure you click the subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with the latest entertainment news, or check out some more of my movie reviews. And if you like this video, make sure you click that like button and share this video out there because it really helps out with the channel. Thank you.